Orthodox Judaism will go extinct in America. So declared one prominent Jewish sociologist in the 1950s based on demographic trends. Many others soon joined in that chorus. Not only did that not come true, but Orthodox Jews have increased their numbers, their institutions, and their communal influence in America. Another one from another time. American Jews will vanish. So said Look magazine in 1964, again, based on demographic trends. Well, American Jews didn't vanish, but Look magazine did. The Talmud teaches who is truly worthy of being called wise? One who foresees the future. And yet, littered in articles and blogs and books are the spurious predictions of sociologists and pundits, especially in the Jewish world. The opening examples may be from decades past, but these voices are still loud all around us. And we know why. Because provocative theories sell, doomsday forecasting is lucrative, and we all want our world to be a little bit more predictable than it truly is. My teacher, Dr. Gary Zola, an eminent scholar of American Jewish history, ended his introductory course on American Judaism with these and other historical examples of when sociologists were so sure of the Jewish future. But then major world events burst onto the scenes, upsetting all of the trends and the very trajectory of our people's future. In addition to the first examples I shared, he would point to the mass immigration of Jews from Eastern Europe who shattered all the expectations and made conservative Judaism the dominant Jewish movement in America for a time. World War II and the suburban shift brought American Jews back into the pews and created peak affiliation rates for our people here in America. Rates we somehow still think were and always were the norm. Not so. And the Six-Day War radically reshaped American Jewish attachment to Israel and the necessity of Jewish security for generations of Jews. Dr. Zola reminded us at the end of our class on history that history is not predictable, and the destiny of the Jewish community is never predetermined. It is always ours to shape. It was one of the most powerful lessons communicated to me during my rabbinical studies. And yet, often despite their own warnings, we still treat sociologists like prophets foreseeing the future, when really what they are photographers who are capturing a single moment. For the past decade, pundits have been sounding the alarm bells of the end of Jewish peoplehood, the concept that despite all of our differences, Jews are united by a common past and a collective destiny. Their voices have grown ever more dire, and in the past 2 years, the Jewish press has been inundated with articles entitled things like, "The end of the Jewish people is here," or "The end of Jewish peoplehood, an American perspective." October 7th will be a watershed moment in Jewish life. But it is too soon to assess the lasting impact that the atrocities and the butchery of that day and its reverberations throughout the weeks and months that have followed will have. But one thing that I see in the immediacy is a clear refutation of the sociologists who have been telling us the Jewish peoplehood is dead and dying. In my 2 recent congregational trips, one with members of our board to Israel and one with our confirmation class to Portugal, demonstrated this so very clearly to me and to our groups. And I could keep us here all night with anecdotes, so I will. No, I will share three. The first was in Israel. We stood at the grounds of the Nova Festival site. And among the makeshift memorials were ultra-Orthodox groups, IDF soldiers, National Religious Zionists, and other North American synagogue groups, all of us there mourning the same slaughter of predominantly secular Israelis. We stood together in awe, taking in that terrible scene, looking at the pictures of the murdered, taking in the dissonance of what was a beautiful day, and matching this landscape to the many videos we had seen of that space and that place. On the outskirts of the field, impromptu prayers and vigils began. And in one area, a group of soldiers started saying Kaddish. Soon, without anyone asking or anyone inviting, Jews of all observances and beliefs and backgrounds joined in that common language of grief, extolling our one God. Yitgadal ve'yitkadash Shemei Rabbi. One voice, one people, one destiny. We also went to the Shuva Junction. It's an area where soldiers travel in and out of Gaza. And so Israelis have set up a place where they can be fed a good hot meal and find quiet or camaraderie and pick up the goods that soldiers need, that they aren't provided with, but they very much need. And they can get these free of charge there because of how many donations have come in. And despite all the barriers between us, age, nationality, experience, we found ourselves sitting at tables with these soldiers, hearing their stories, offering our support, our presence, and they offered theirs to us. One people, one destiny. And this is not, as some speculate, a phenomenon that ends with one generation. Jewish teens have the capacity for deep feelings of peoplehood when we demonstrate to them that it's important and we provide them with language to understand it. On each confirmation trip, we work hard to ensure that we don't just encounter the stories of Jewish communities past. We also want our students to encounter Jews who are living out their Jewish lives today. And so in Portugal, we did learn all about the medieval communities who lived there for a time and thrived there for a time. But we also went to Kabbalat Shabbat dinner at a local synagogue and Kabbalat Shabbat services right after. We spent an afternoon with the Lisbon Jewish youth movement so that our teens could be with teens from the Jewish community of today. And these encounters, each and every year, with a different Jewish group, a youth group from a different destination, are always the highlight of the trip for our students and for our staff. But I will say the Lisbon Jewish community was one of the warmest we've experienced. One of our students, Lucy, summed up the importance of this visit when she reflected, before the trip, I had only visited Jewish communities in the United States and in Israel, so it was really hard for me to visualize what other Jewish community looks like in Europe. When we got to be with the teens, another student of ours, Marin, noted, it felt like we were part of one big family. Andrew shared, after meeting up with those teens in Lisbon, I learned that it's not too hard to make connections to Jews from different cultures. You just have to find the shared parts of your identity. And Anya summed up the experience well when she said, I liked the way the chaperones framed the trip to the youth center as a meeting with distant cousins. Seeing how warmly they greeted us made me feel connected to the Jewish diaspora all around the world. And finding out that one student in their group had the exact same cultural and family story as me really made me realize that we are all connected. One people, one destiny. The parsha this week is called Vayakhel, after the first word that means to form a group, a kahal, a kehillah. In this case, Moses brings the Israelites into a collective community to build the Mishkan. All the tribes of Israel come together for a common purpose, building God's sanctuary. But the verb vayakel is the very same one that's used to describe when those same tribes come together to create and worship the golden calf. This teaches us that a group can be a mob, but it can also be a kingdom of priests. We are in the midst of events that are changing us, that will continue to change us. As we are brought close again, forming a renewed kehillah among all the people of Israel, our task is to react to these days in a way that will allow us to discern our people's constructive purpose. If our kinship is to live beyond this fleeting moment, and I pray it will, the moderate majority amongst us must ignore the extremist voices on each side who are clamoring for us to worship golden calves. Rather, we must continue the work we have done to build a Jewish state that is a sanctuary for God, a sanctuary for the Jewish people, and a sanctuary for all people who would dwell among us and around us in tranquility. My teacher of Jewish history taught that we are not defined by what happens to us, we're defined by how we respond to it. History and destiny call to us Jews once again.